All right, welcome to the Writer's Block, everyone. It's so good to see you all here again today, and really excited to have my friend Kristen Couch join us. She and I got to meet in person last year at a conference in Minneapolis, and um, she's also been so kind to endorse my book. And I've just always been a fan of your writing, so we want to just welcome you to the Writer's Block.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm familiar with your work, but there will be some listeners who may not be. So could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and where you live and about your writing?
Absolutely. My husband and I have been married over 30 years now, and we have four grown children, three are married, and we have two grandchildren and one more on the way, and a son who is a missionary overseas. So I have always loved to write since I could hold a pencil and started writing stories in first and second grade. Majored in writing in college, received an English writing degree there, and then married my husband. And in pretty rapid succession, had four children, and I stayed home with them and homeschooled all the way until they went to college. And during those years, I would scribble down little notes, little stories, but nothing steady because all of my time was devoted happily to my kids, and I would do it all over again. But then in 2020, um, when the pandemic hit, I
Mhm.
took a writing mentorship, and one of the assignments was we had to write 5 days a week for 8 weeks. And so doing that kind of got me back in the rhythm. Our nest was starting to empty. Children were leaving, and I took up the challenge of just starting a blog, and I really didn't think much would come of it, which was fine because I just liked the writing itself. I had missed it. I loved it. And then one thing led to another, and I self-published a book. I had a reader from the blog who was chasing me down to self-publish, and I put her off and I put her off. We had a couple kids getting married, and I was busy, and she's like, "Please, I'll edit it for you." So I said, "Okay," and published that, and then just carried on. Was having fun with the blog, and the Good Book Company reached out and said, "Can you please pitch us an idea? We want to work with you." And that's how I wrote Deep Roots, Good Fruit. So I just love writing. I love writing in any shape or form, and it's just God's been kind to allow me to do it.
Yeah, that's so sweet. I love too the part of your story where the publisher actually reached out to you. What a compliment to the quality of your writing. And just it seems to me from your story that it was just kind of a wonderful provision from the Lord, just that He brought that and wasn't something necessarily you were seeking. Is that correct?
It was not. I mean, I would have been happy to write a book. I've I really like blogging. I really like writing essays. Um, and I wasn't looking to do that, but the Lord opened that door, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I don't take that for granted, but I think that came about because of, well, the Lord's kindness, but my willingness to blog every week. And I didn't know that publishers look at that, but they do. They want to see consistency and self-motivation. And I wasn't doing it for those reasons. I just love writing. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That is cool. It was that fruit born out of the discipline of
Mhm.
consistently showing up and writing, and that is no small thing to do and to begin that practice. So, well, today we're talking about thinking small, which is hopefully a bit of an attention grabbing thought because I think often we think about thinking big, like that's kind of how we're programmed in the West, have big thoughts, big ideas, go big, go home kind of idea, but you wanted to take a different approach to writing about thinking small. So could you tell us a little bit about that idea and where it stems from in your own writing?
Yes, I think not always, but sometimes I think we write the things that we would like to read. And I know that's true for me. So, for example, I love Jan Karen's Midford books. It's
Yeah.
all about little life, little things. And, I think was it Francis Schaeffer that said there are no little people or little places. And I 100% agree. But I think sometimes my experience has been, and I'm not saying this is everyone's experience, and I'm not saying this is the only way to do things. People I deeply respect and admire have a very different take on this, but I'm just going to tell you my train of thought is to be just to look at the life God has given you and the people around you and your church and your neighborhood and your family and really pour into those people with all the fervor and the grace and the energy that you can. I do think God honors the Christian who is not seeking to be higher than the Lord, right? I think about the Tower of Babel and what happened there. Well, they wanted to be higher and grander and greater than God. And for me personally, one of the ways of thinking small is I don't have any social media. I briefly had it when I did that writing mentorship 5 years ago. It was a requirement. So that those were the only 8 weeks that I was on Facebook. And I am embarrassed to say how much time it's I allowed it to take over 8 weeks. So I would look down and I would be scrolling this and that, like, oh, what's this? What's it? And I would look up and an hour and a half had passed. And it was alarming. And I also noticed something interesting that my creative juices for writing, when I was on there, they just started to, you know, head the wrong
Taper off.
directions.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, I got off there immediately at the end. As soon as those 8 weeks were over, I got off. I've written about this before, and I remember the relief and looking out the window and seeing a cardinal and a bluebird and just noticing God's beauty. So for me, thinking small, when the Good Book Company came to me, my friends were like, "You said what?" And I said to them, I said, you just need to know I'm happy to write a book for you, but I can't do it if I am required to be on social media. And they're like, absolutely. You do not need to do that. That's how much it affects me in a bad way. So thinking small means thinking about each sentence, thinking about each essay. And I don't go into writing thinking, I wonder who's going to read this. I wonder if a publisher is going to look at this. I literally, I break the rule. I do not consider my audience. I'm literally having a conversation with the Lord, working, knowing what I think about something, fleshing it out to serve the audience. So I know I'm not supposed to say that because everyone's like, you must know your audience. Well, I don't. I just write for God. I
Yeah.
write about what I'm interested in. I'm going to talk more about this on Thursday. I can't wait. That little pebble in the shoe, something that's irritating, and go for it.
I love that. I love that. And I think that's so refreshingly honest and like there's a purity to what you're describing where I think often as writers we just get so caught up in the platform building and the distractions all around us and that when we clear out some of those distractions, like in the case you describe of social media, you begin to notice things. And that's one of the things I've always loved and appreciated about your writing. I will sometimes read your essays and I will just like read a sentence over and over again. I'm like, oh, like how did she how did she say that so well? And often it seems like the way you write and the way you describe things is you're taking very common, maybe what we would say little moments in life and like kind of placing your reader into that little moment, looking at the people in the waiting room at the vet, that kind of thing, where you're noticing things around you that maybe had you had your phone open, which I probably would have been guilty of if I had been in that scene, is I would have been, distracting myself maybe. And so, how does that impact? I mean, I guess you've been off of social media for a long time. So, do you feel like your eyes and your heart are kind of in tune with the little things?
Yes, very much so. And there's there's just so much material that God gives us as writers if you're paying attention. And no one does this perfectly, but I would encourage everyone. I take if different writers ask me, I just encourage them. Some of them look at me like I'm crazy. I just tell them, go off of social media for 6 months, cold turkey. I said, you are going to have more material and you're going to be able to hear God and you're going to be able to be present in His Word, which is huge for writing, for Christian writing. Like that is how the day begins. And
Mhm.
it's a joy. And I can't tell you, ladies, how often I will be in my Bible reading for the day, what comes off the page for that day's writing. God provides it's like His joy to give that. And I think for me, and I'm not making blanket statements. People I love and adore are on social media, but to me, it feels like a pull into an underworld. And if God wants me to write for His glory, I can't be there personally. And that's not true for everyone, but it's one of the biggest pieces of advice. And then you notice the little things. And I think we all know as writers, if God has created you or me to write for His glory, I think we need to be obedient and cooperate and come under Him. And to me, if it's like if I've got my phone here and I'm doing this and looking at that or him, um, I just don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And it's not that I'm being stubborn or, you know, judgmental. I'm just saying if I'm going to write and do what God has asked me to do, I need to just keep things simple and streamlined. So, yes.
So what does that look like for you on a practical level? You talked about just finding more ideas. When you're thinking small, I mean, I think you're kind of taking notice of, I don't know, maybe just your surroundings, but also internal things. Um, what does that look like for you? How do you live presently in this world and um, gather ideas? And maybe do you, like, in a very practical sense, are you keeping notes on your phone and being like, oh, I noticed this little interaction in the line at the supermarket today? Or how does that play itself out?
Notes are huge. So I have right now, I think, three big notebooks full. And a lot of those little sentences or words have not seen the light of day, and they might marinate for 2 or 3 years. But when I'm noticing something and something is just nagging at me, or I notice a buttercup outside and how soft it looks, I write that down. And that's where a lot of material comes from. I would say the biggest part of writing, we have a very my husband and I have a very full life. He's a pastor, planted a church a little over a year ago, and we're 53, and planting a church at 53 is a lot.
Hmm.
I'm an introvert, so there's a lot of outgoing each week. So just to get practical, I realized early on, no one is going to set aside writing time for me. No one. Me. I'm the only one that can do it. So I had to wrangle my schedule and treat it like work because it's work that God would
It
have
is
me do.
work.
And
Yeah.
it's not, I can't kind of roll out of bed and be like, oh, I wonder if I can find 20 minutes. No, I'm really, really strict. Actually, I wrote down a quote. It's my favorite quote. Let's see. I want to read this to you. This is one of my biggest pieces of advice. Be regular and orderly in your life so that you may be violent and original in your work.
Hmm.
And that is literally what I do. So I have one day a week that I pack up and go. I reserve a room at the library and I work every Monday, almost every Monday, from 9 to 4. And so that day of writing, that doesn't include preparing talks. It doesn't include emailing women from church that I'm discipling. It doesn't include answering any email. It actually, I turn my phone to silent, um, and I write from 9 to 4, taking
Wow.
a small lunch break. So that is my big day. Then other days in the week are patches. And when I'm going to the library, I'm thinking small. So I'm thinking, okay, what project does the Lord want me working on today? It might be a small essay. It might be a quarter of a chapter if I'm working on a book or whatever. And yeah, so
And
that's what it
that's
looks
and
like.
that's your goal for the day.
And there is a goal, and it's really hard when you have a big family and you are planting a church and you're discipling women and you might be preparing a talk. You have to fight
You
for the
do.
writing hours, and it's worth it. It's worth it.
Yeah, I appreciate you explaining like what that looks like for you because I feel like I let all of those distractions come in, and I think sometimes that I'm going to be as productive by, keeping my email under control as I'm writing. But then before you know it, you're sidetracked. One email might be 2 or 3 steps worth of things you have to do. And so, yeah, I really appreciate the diligence and kind of like the protecting that you do of that time. I think that's
And you
sometimes we
know,
have to get extreme and might feel and sound extreme to some of us, but I bet that's very fruitful for you as well.
it's fruitful and you do have to fight for it. And I'll just tell you, not everyone is going to be impressed with that. And it's not that you're unkind, but it does require saying no to some things.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I've had to explain to people because, our life is one of outpouring. We're serving women and men at our church, and I'm, helping with grandchildren or whatever. But I told the way I describe it is if people are upset that you have working hours, can you imagine if you worked at a bank from 9 to 4 and people are calling and are upset that you can't answer your friends? Well, of course they wouldn't be because you're
right.
at work.
Yeah,
If you start doing this, I have found that people will respect it. Oh, she's at work. Oh, and
yeah,
only writers can understand the labor of love and time anything takes. I do not write quickly. Some people maybe are gifted at that and can just write a blog post in an afternoon. It takes me a long time, and it
yeah.
just has to be seasoned, and I have to pray over it, and yeah. So
Yeah. Well, that's encouraging to me too. I feel like I'm a slow writer, slow processor, slow to think through all of the steps in that writing process. So it's good to
mhm.
hear that you're slow too.
Yes.
Well, tell us too. I think sometimes we might feel that tension between thinking small and maybe the rewards of that. Sometimes we relate big pushes, big ideas with big fruit. And so how do you think through that? Because I think often as writers, we all know that there's a lot of those moments of discipline and faithfulness in unseen ways with our writing practice. And sometimes that doesn't always translate into to big visible fruit. But can
Mhm.
you talk to us about that?
Yes, I would encourage everyone, personally, what I wish there would be a conference on this. I wish there I've been to a handful. I don't go to many anymore. The one I loved best was the Desiring God one, and they had a break-off session with just really heartfelt writing advice that was biblical. So most ones, even if they're Christian that I've gone to, it's something like this. They say that they're going to talk about writing, but what they're always talking about is how to grow your platform. and those big ideas. And I get a little bit discouraged because I think these people need to hear how in small ways to tune their hearts to sing his praise and write about it. And we're not getting that encouragement. It's kind of like this. Well, ladies, I'm sorry to say, but you're going to need to have 500,000 people on social media before a publisher will look at you. And I just feel like the mentality is wrong. Don't start thinking publishing platform. Think, what is God doing in my heart, and how can I minister to one person? Just one. And this is what I know. I talk about this. Um, I created an audio writing class called Write the Truth Beautifully, and I won't share all of this here, but what I will tell you is my favorite writer was from 20 years ago, and she does not know I exist, and she's not an official writer, but I think she's the finest writer I have ever read. And she blogged for 1 year as her husband, who was, I'm going to say he was 32, lay dying of cancer.
Mm,
So they were shocked that he had cancer. He was young. They had 3 kids. So she blogged a couple times a week for a little less than a year. And it was her writing changed me.
mm,
And she doesn't even know I exist. It was a friend of a friend of a friend. But her writing, the way she talked about the sun streaming through the window, lighting up the hospital bed, and she would be in their bed holding hands, and their kids are wanting to jump on their dad's hospital bed. And
mm,
the way she wrote about the little things, the smell of the pizza as they had his last birthday party in there, and how they would sing "A Mighty Fortress Is Our God." It was all these little things. And I tell you, ladies, I was right there in that room with her, and I thought, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to handle my pencil. And so my
mm.
point is, she's one woman. Who knows how many lives she changed? She's not even a writer. I mean, that was just, and then and there, I thought, Lord, if you ever allow me to write, I want to stay small.
Hmm.
And, so that's my heartbeat. I I kind of lose, like, I kind of dwindle away from conversations when people say to me, how'd you get a book deal? How'd you get published? What I want is the woman to say to me, how did you learn to write? Like, how do you do this and write about, you know, the argument you had with someone and how you both had to humble yourselves, and how, what words do you use? What small things do you change? How do you use the senses? That's what I love. I'm just like over the whole platform thing. I'm just not there. Yeah.
Well, I think you're expressing what a lot of us feel, and I mean, I think it's sweet how the Lord has blessed that for you, and remaining faithful and those small things. And yeah, I think that's beautiful. So the woman that you were following, she just kind of, was this a caring bridge kind of thing where she's just kind of processing and didn't realize how beautifully she wrote? Is that
Yes, and they had churches praying for them for a long time. We didn't know each other, but we had a friend of a friend, and she and I actually went to the same college and didn't know each other. But yeah, once he passed away, she thanked everyone and shut down the blog.
wow?
And so this is when my daughter was a teeny tiny baby, and she's now almost 22. So
It's
yeah,
been a while. Yeah.
it's been a while, but I still think about her, and I always remind myself, my favorite thing, ladies, is not book deals or this and that. My favorite thing is when I write a blog post and someone messages me and says, I needed that today. It's like one little person in the world. She's like, this is going to get me through today. That to me is everything.
Oh, yeah, that's absolutely everything. I love to, like, it seems like your focus is much more on craft. And I think that that is kind of the forgotten element often, in the whole platform building thing. I think we feel like we can kind of compensate for craft by big platforms, and we've all seen the big names that get the book deals that aren't necessarily great writers, and that pains us a little bit when we see it. But how do you how do you get down into the small things of craft? Like what are the things that you focus on in your own work that maybe, and as you're self-editing your own self, what are the things you're looking for?
Glad you said self-editing. That's a huge, huge part of what I encourage people to do. It's the learning to self-editing, and I think it was Christopher DeVink. He's a writer. I like his writing. Um, I love his advice. Read your piece aloud, and when you feel the potholes as you're driving, stop and fix it.
Hmm.
So that's one, and it works. So I'll be home alone or at the library and I'll be reading, or my dog will just kind of looking at me like, what are you talking? But you feel it and you learn to feel it and you edit and you edit. And um, I would say strong, strong verbs. And I'll talk about that on Thursday. Just little changes in verbs. I think people tend to go a little wild on adverbs sometimes. Those should
Hmm.
be maybe little
The
um,
LYs, right?
um, use the senses, but don't knock people over with everything all at once. Just choose subtle ones. And then I think that there's power in story. I like story. I want people to be right there. Um, and I want to, um, my goal, I don't always do this, but my goal, the Lord knows this, is to shine his truth through things, through everyday things, because we're all living in the mundane. Most of us are not famous, right? I mean, we do the dishes, we do laundry, we argue with our husband, we pack lunches, we serve people at church, we disagree. I think it's really important that the fruit of the spirit be seen not in the flashy stories, but in everyday life. And so I want to have my reader have a lump in their throat. I want them to think of something in their past. I want emotion, but I want strong biblical thinking. That's what I'm going for. It doesn't always work, obviously, but
Well,
try.
you said a lot there, and I hope that maybe those on the call and those who listen to it later are hearing that some of the things you're saying are kind of those intangibles of writing. Like you said, read out loud. So it's like the cadence, right? Like the way we read things versus the way we hear things, and that cadence to writing. And then you talked a little bit too about the storytelling and the kind of the dropping your reader into a scene. But what do you want them to feel? How did you feel if you're telling a personal story? That kind of thing that really helps writing stand apart from the rest.
I just kind of think, unless you're writing a manual on how to fix your kitchen sink, I think the word should sing. I think it's a shame. I read a lot. I read widely. I love memoir. I know a lot of people roll their eyes, but love biography, love memoir. But it's sad to me because I read some of the most beautiful writing from people who aren't Christians, and my thought is, why is that?
Hmm.
We have the greatest gift in Christ. Why can't we speak the truth winsomely? Why can't we evoke some of the word pictures? I mean, I just read some gorgeous writing and it's so sad because they don't have Jesus.
Right.
And we do. What is I think we need to work on the craft is my point. And
Yeah.
that's my passion.
I agree. I think, and that's kind of what the writer's block we're about. We're about growing in the art and heart of writing, which I think craft falls under both of those things. But yeah, to write winsomely, I love that word, um, because we do have such a beautiful centerpiece to our lives and to our faith, and I really love the whole transcendentals of the ancients, which was goodness, truth, and beauty, right? And I think that as Christians, that's what we should be about, because that's who our Savior is. So mimicking that in whatever ways possible, and it's a growing process, right? Like I think we have to be gentle with ourselves and patient with ourselves. But you also said you read widely, and I think that that's a great way to learn, don't you? Just to read others that you admire, look at the style of what they're doing, and it's okay to copy. It's okay to
I,
mimic
I,
that.
th- and I think, right, and I think small word choices and small ideas jump off the page when you're reading and you take notes on those. And it's kind of like you're reading and you realize, because it's not your own writing, you realize, at least I do, what works and what doesn't. So if you're reading and I just think it's a great help for the writer. So I think I read every night before I go to bed. That's my time for reading for pleasure on my Kindle. I read every night and I'm in the Bible every morning. I think another thing, it's been hard for me because for the past 4 months, I have had a knee injury. I tore my meniscus on a vacation.
Mm,
Part of my regular system is I walk every morning, and that's been really hard because that's where I get a lot of ideas. I haven't been able to do that for 4 months. It's a
that's
slow heal.
tough.
So that being said, though, I realize that God is kind and he's brought ideas to me. But I would say for writers, it's really good to put your pencil down too and get out there, go serve someone, talk to people, then come back to your scheduled time. Don't always be working. Like, you know how just bits and pieces, you feel like it's never done. It's a terrible feeling. Walk away and go serve someone. It's really good.
Yeah, that's very wise counsel. um, because we're a community of writers, and we feel strongly about the need of having other Christian writers around us. Do you have that in your life? Do you have a group of in real life and or over virtual friends that you bounce ideas off of, read each other's work, get feedback, ask questions? Do you have that kind of community around you?
Do not. I have two very good writing friends who are live far, far away. So we get together and sometimes online we chat, but I don't know whether this is right or wrong. When it comes time for me to write, I'm very independent in my writing. So I don't, other than if I'm working with an editor, it's not like I'm being stubborn. It's just like I literally put the blinders on and I am in another world. So I like conversations like this where there's back and forth, but I don't, yeah, I'm an independent, right? And I think part of that is personality. Part of that is I have so much outgoing with our church and our family and so many conversations. I really, I really love to be alone with the page and the Lord.
Yeah.
So, but I
Well,
think
that's
that's,
community in itself, right?
yeah, it
That's
is.
the best kind.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I've got a good showing today from Writer's Block members who've joined us. So I'd love for this to be a time where if you want to ask questions or comments to Kristen, to feel free to unmute.
Oops, I was already unmuted. Sorry, guys. Um, uh, this is off topic a little bit, but when did you plant the church? Because my husband and I planted a church just over a year ago in Athens, and I just thought it was interesting. You said it was just over a year ago. So, and also where?
Yes.
Like we
In
prayed about ours for 27 years before we planted it, but
oh,
so it was kind of in our hearts for a long time, but it
oh,
actually took place 2 Augusts ago. So,
okay, yeah, we started, we're in Chesterfield, Virginia. It's
oh,
called
cool.
Redeemer Bible Fellowship.
Mhm. Nice.
And we started, let's see, September of 24.
We were August of 24. So it's
Wow.
kind of fun that we have
Oh,
like
that's fun.
church babies at the same time.
There
Um,
you go.
But also, okay, this is really off topic, Kristen, but are you in perimenopause?
I am
Because I
hearing
think
that.
it's stupid to plant a church in perimenopause. I don't
Oh,
understand God's timing, but he's obviously wiser than I am. But I'm like,
oh,
why, Lord?
he's Lord.
Anyways,
He's Lord over all the seasons.
yes, he is. I know. But anyways, I just thought it was kind of funny, like, oh, great, this is like such a setup for spiritual warfare and also a really, but anyways, but
Well, I
it's
pray
been
your church is
glorious.
going well. It's a labor of love,
Thanks.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it
Faithfulness to
is,
the
and it's
Lord.
beautiful, and I don't know about you, but I'm really enjoying, the small things there, like, it's really precious because it's such a
Mhm.
new church plant, and we don't like, um, oak trees grow slowly, like, I'm not looking for like, I know a lot of times people I kind of feel like about the church plant, like you're talking about writing, right? Where it's like people sometimes in their writing life, instead of looking for real well development of our souls and to put down deep, rich roots and to really be nourished by it and nourished through it, instead we look for numbers and accolades and things like that. And it's been kind of lovely because it's just an intimate group of people right now, and I know that it's going to grow. And I don't want to say I'm dreading it because I know that that'll be the Lord's will and timing and everything. But I'm really enjoying the intimacy of right now. You know?
Wonderful. What a blessing.
Yeah,
That's
it
exciting.
Mm.
is.
I love
Yeah. How about
both of your examples of faithfulness when you're not in your 20s anymore too. Like I think that's really beautiful, and like that the Lord uses the foolish things of the world, right? To
Mhm.
confound the wise. So it's great to see
Mhm.
you being faithful in that space.
You
So,
know? Oh, sorry. Never
oh,
mind.
go ahead, Space. Finish your
Uh,
thought.
But I was just gonna say what else was really cool about not being in our 20s is that 2 of our 3 sons helped us plant the church. One's the worship leader and one's teaching Sunday school, and what a gift that is, to see that. Anyways, that was the end of the go ahead, Kathy. I love you.
I just had a question, Kristen. When you talk about the writing about the small things, I find in that case that always resonates with a lot of people because their experiences tend to be the same. It's like, oh, that's me too, but I couldn't articulate that. So I understand that, that's where a lot of the writing really connects with people. But what would you say, who would you say is your ideal reader? Do you have any idea? I mean, not being on social media, how do you know who your audience is? And I mean, obviously you're writing what God's telling you to write, but do you have an ideal reader or a target reader?
Well, that's that's kind of what I was saying. I guess I've kind of broken the rules. I really, really, what I write, and I know they say don't do this, but it has worked. It has worked for me. I write about things I'm interested in, things I'm noticing, and conversations I'm praying back to God. And then I get very specific. And a lot of these are stories, they're memories, whether I'm sharing about my childhood, about, my grandfather. I get very specific and it reaches more people when you do that. Um, so instead of writing about, being nervous on your first day of school, you're not saying, and I went to school and I did this and I saw this. It's more like you're putting the person there, and it might be something like, you talk about how you feel your cheeks getting red because you're the only little girl in a dress and everyone else has Nikes and jeans or whatever, and people are staring at you. You get more specific. I know it's kind of counterintuitive, but the more specific you get, the more people it reaches. That's just how it works. So writing in broad, large generalities, it doesn't evoke the same response in a reader. That's been my experience.
And I think you're kind of tugging on that thing that we all depend. I mean, it kind of transcends all of the categories that we like to think in, because it's like we all can identify with feeling out of place or feeling nervous or being vulnerable or whatever the case may be. And so I understand your logic there that it kind of, you're being very specific and yet you're reaching a bigger audience because you're finding that common human experience or emotion in that.
So you kind of, different people work different ways. The way, I don't know how it all works with me, but I don't sit down and say, I'm going to write about the time where I felt misunderstood. I start with the story. And as I'm writing the story, I pretty soon I know, oh, I really felt misunderstood here. But the response I get from readers is that. So I start with the story that's specific and that commonality that you're talking about, Kara, that's common to the human race. And we're all, like I said, we're almost all living mundane lives. So we can all connect with these things if you're a human. So another small change is, to me, it's a turn off when people blog or write and they're always the hero of their story, like something's off there. So as Christians, it's always the Lord's the hero. But if you're willing to be vulnerable and, I don't want to say look foolish, but you're willing to share a struggle, a sin, a mistake that you made, that is very that vulnerability and that humility is attractive.
It is. Yeah.
No one wants to
It
read
makes
about
people
how,
feel like
yeah.
they can get to know you too, right? Like you're not this imperfect person untouched by sin. You're instantly more relatable in that case.
And I don't know how you feel about this. I think it's a personality thing, but the other side of that, being vulnerable and sharing these, is that you will meet people that do feel like they know you. And it's funny. Yeah, it's funny because um, I would say I have deep friendships with a few people. I'm not the person that has 100 friendships. Like I'm just not that way. So it's funny because sometimes you're like, you share it, they connect, but then they feel like they're inside your life. And yeah, it's challenging sometimes, but
Yeah, it's interesting.
Mhm.
One thing I'll ask too, it seems like your style is always to start with story. Is that intentional on your part? And then the follow-up to that is I think sometimes in my own writing, I'm sometimes looking for like the big grand story, like the really big ones that are worth repeating several times. And it seems like like you said, this whole talk is about thinking small. You're noticing the smaller, finer details of life. And so does that help you? Um, I'm sure it does. It helps you craft more because you're not, because sometimes I'll spend days thinking about like what's my opening story. So I feel like that's a great template to kind of follow, but sometimes I get hung up on my lack of stories.
Well, I think too, bear in mind, God's given each of us different abilities in our writing. And Kara, I've read your book and it was phenomenal. And you are very gifted in an area that is harder for me to write. And so I think story wise and then draw things. You are a really good Bible teacher,
Mm.
and taking like attributes of God and teaching them. I'll say this: when I wrote Deep Roots, Good Fruit, the stories came like that. It was the follow-up and the explanation that it was harder for me to write. So I think God, though, gives us lives and stories to steward. I don't think it's an accident that everything that happens to us happens to us. And if he's made you a writer, I think it's wise to consider pulling those stories in because he's given them to you, right? Everything goes through his hands.
Mm.
So I would just say that stories are good, but you don't have to write stories. Like we all have different strengths and we don't have to write like each other. And that's one thing I love to tell women is he's given all of us a unique voice so we can learn from each other. but I don't need to write like Kara, and Kara doesn't need to write like me, or fill in the blank with any of you. Try to, and that's why I think small acts of faithfulness, writing a little bit each day if you can, I think you will start to know the voice that God's given you. And ask yourself, do you, it's like Eric Liddell, when he was running, the Olympian, he would say, when I run, I feel God's pleasure. I would say, when you write, do you feel God's pleasure? And I'm not saying when you write a book, do you feel God's pleasure? I think people go right to the book thing. It's like, no, no, no. When you write, do you feel his pleasure? And let that be enough. Write for him and see what he wants to do with it. And we are not all meant to write books. I just think that's a terrible pressure to put on people. And I think it's wise to ask yourself, when you write, do you feel his pleasure? And part two of that is, if you don't, that's okay. He has something creative. I know that sounds weird to say on a writer's podcast, but if you don't love it, find that creative thing that you do love and try that for a bit. It's not wrong. You don't have to write if you don't love it. But I would say, if you love writing, if people occasionally want to read your writing, then he's gifted you. Go for it.
Yeah, that's encouraging, freeing too, and being faithful in the small places and the little things. It adds up to a life of faithfulness, and I really appreciate that. I think that's a good lesson, and we don't have to we don't all have to look the same. In fact, we shouldn't. We should be our own unique take on the world, and I think the world needs everyone's take for sure.
Mm-hmm. I would 100% agree with that. And, you know, this sounds silly, probably sounds silly, but, try writing a letter to a friend, an old-fashioned snail mail letter. Take pleasure in that. Think about what you're writing. Write a thoughtful text. Pay attention in those little things. And as you do, you're growing that writing muscle.
Yeah,
You're,
absolutely.
yep.
And there is that little payoff of pleasure, I think, from that little thing too. Well, are there any other thoughts, comments, questions?
I am curious, Kristen, you mentioned all the notebooks that you filled with just little ideas or sentences or whatever. Um, do you regularly page through them and read them looking for inspiration for the next thing that you're going to write? Or how do you keep those notebooks from just collecting dust?
A good question.
Yes, I have I'm so old school, it's probably embarrassing. I'm just so not techie, but I have an old LL bean bag, and I keep all the notebooks in there. And I have color coded, like these Amazon cheap Ziploc bags that are color coded for each project. So one is blog ideas, one is if I'm pitching an article, one are book ideas. So I keep those with little notes, but the notebooks themselves come with me to the library, like I said, every Monday. I use them I'm probably thumbing through those once a week, because I cannot believe what I forget. Right? Like, you think you're going to remember these things, you don't. And it's incredible what one sentence or one turn of phrase, all of a sudden it can get things going if you're feeling sluggish. It's wonderful. So I would highly recommend keeping notebooks. I don't, a lot of you probably journal. I don't journal. I just keep notebooks and am always working on some piece of writing. So
So it sounds like your notebooks are your brainstorming tool of choice. Yeah. And you
yes.
use different notebooks for different things. Is that right? So you just have,
No, those are sheets of, it's kind of complicated. Those are sheets of paper. Like, okay, so my notebooks are all packed full of sentences, words, ideas. But then the other little Ziplocs are for the specific things like I have to work on, let's say that week. So I might have a Ziploc. It's like these Amazon durable Ziploc things. They're color coded, but like a red one might be, okay, this is an idea I'm going to pitch to Desiring God. And I keep, if I come up with a list of things I want to pitch to them in the future, I keep it in the red bag. The green bag might be, these are my next book ideas. But the notebooks are like the meat, the words, the phrases that this just little remembrances of a story.
Hmm.
So
Wow. That's a great, that's a new one. I like hearing about your process. That's great.
yeah, it works.
It works. That's
It
the
works.
that's the key. Well, Kristen, you're going to be back on Thursday. For those who are in the writer's block, we're going to do a solo teaching. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're going to be talking about on Thursday?
Yes, let me reach into my bag here just to make sure I have this right. But I'm excited about this. I hope a few of you can make it. It's going to be 7 ways to be faithful to your craft by thinking small.
Hmm.
So we're going to get really specific. This isn't going to be some little, vague teaching. I'm very excited about this because these are the things that I wish someone had told me in college and they didn't.
Hmm.
They didn't. It was a lot of generalization. So we're gonna go really specific, and I hope it's my whole goal is to encourage you to use your voice to make small changes for God's glory.
I'm so looking forward to that. And I want to give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about where we can find you and then also about your Write Beautifully. I can't remember the exact name of your course, but where can we learn more about that as well?
Kind of a one-stop shop since I'm not on social media. So everything is at thepalelistinc.com. It's the dash palest dash inc.com. Everything is in the header there on the sidebar. But yes, I have a free monthly newsletter where I link to other people's writings. It's called The Good, the True, the Beautiful. Um, Link to my favorite things. And then I have an audio course called Write the Truth Beautifully. And that's a 3-part audio course that I sell. I had actually taught it once through Zoom and it went really well. But I had people messaging me saying it was at the wrong time or this day didn't work. So what I did is I ended up just creating it as an audio class that you can listen from your phone whenever you want. So that's a 3-part class. Um, I'll just tell you, week 1 is called A Shepherd of Words. Week 2, Truth is Our Drivetrain. What is our fuel? And week 3 is called The Writer's Toolbox with all the tools that are not social media related to
Oh, I
make your
love that.
pieces, to make
Yeah.
your pieces sing. Yeah.
Well, I'm really looking forward to hearing your solo teaching. I mean, you have a degree in English, right? And so I love that you're going to be teaching us stuff that you're not going to learn in a classroom necessarily, but through life and through practice. So I think that will be great. I'm looking forward to that.
Really practical. And I hope I can encourage you. That's the whole aim.
Yeah, well, I think you've encouraged us all here today. We're really grateful for you being here. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we close out today?
Well, I will say this, if you're not able to make Thursday, I'll just give you one little thing that we're going to be talking about. But one other thing I would like to say is thinking small is really keeping and taking care of your heart, not following your heart. So if you're going to write for God's glory, let him keep your heart and have those regular little tune-ups with him. And one of the ways that I have found that has helped me is to remind yourself every day that every Christian writer, that we are all on the same team. We are all writing for the Lord, and there shouldn't be competition. There should be a lot of encouragement and not jealousy, but pushing other people to the front. And one way to do that is to just um, keep your heart close to the Lord through His Word. And when someone writes something beautifully, I need to do this more. I try to do it So many times I'll read a piece and I'll think that was lovely, and then I don't take the time to email or text the person. But do that. We all need encouragement. It can be, it can be lonely, and you feel like there are days you feel like, is this going anywhere? Is it? But it does. And so I would just say stay close to the Lord, be happy for other writers, and keep those hands open, just see what God will do.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. Good encouragement for today. So,
All right.
well, thank you, Kristen. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you on Thursday.
Thank you. I can't wait. See you then.
Us too. Bye-bye.
Bye.